Welcome to episode number 25. On today's show, we talk about giving up the good in pursuit of great, why the pitch is important, and what spam thumb is.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A car salesman.
Said no one ever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hennessy.
And I'm Courtney Hennessy.
Welcome to the Be Less Typical in Car Sales podcast, a real-life account of the car business that breaks the perception of what it's like to be a car sales professional. During the show, we're going to take you into the lives and minds of those who have found success. So ignite your passion and get ready to learn effective hacks to streamline your success and boost your income.
So, is that your pitch?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Honest, I think the question of what do you want to be when you grow up, I think that's an ever-evolving question. Like if you asked me that today, like right now, I would actually be like, you know what, I don't really know. I don't really know because I don't really even know if I've grown up yet.
I suppose I would agree with this notion, and I think most of our guests would too. As we grow up and develop our skill set, we begin to understand what we're good at, what we like to do, what provides fulfillment. And our vision of the future changes. Our goals change. What we want to be changes.
True, but don't let that notion fool you. Frank Lopes is a grown-up and very successful by many standards. Today, he's the vice president of Forrest & Blake Advertising Agency.
He's grown up in the auto industry and climbed the ranks to get where he's at today. When he was a little boy,
I wanted to be a race car driver. I have no idea why. And then after that, I wanted to be a radio DJ. And then I wanted to do something in the car dealership. Originally, I wanted to be a mechanic because that's basically what my father was. And that's what I saw him doing. And then as I grew up a little bit more, I wanted to get into sales and everything like that.
His exposure to the car business started at an early age. His father worked at a Ford Lincoln dealership. And at age 10, Frank says his mom didn't know what to do with him during the summer break. So she sent him to work with his dad.
It's there that he begins to learn about the business. I imagine this 10-year-old kid standing in the middle of the service shop, looking around, taking it all in, listening to the interactions taking place around him.
So at a very young age, I was there. I was there at the store, and I would just, he was a prep mechanic, so I would just be looking around, not know what to do. And my father would say, sweep the floor, take out the tray, take out everybody's garbage, go up in the front and wipe down the cars on the floor.
He says he would find any job to do to pass the time. And this summer break experience goes on throughout his adolescent years. And then after he graduates high school,
basically thrown onto the floor right after that. And that turned into baptism of fire.
Thrown onto the sales floor of the dealership. He's probably about 18 at this time, and he says baptism by fire was good because there was no time for fear. But at the same time, it was bad because he wasn't really prepared.
Why?
Because there wasn't any training. He says he was training one by one, or in other words, up by up.
Fun fact, UP stands for Unsold Prospect.
Anyhow, after working in sales for a while, Frank decides he wants to leave the car business. But of course, he doesn't go far. He gets a college degree and goes to work for a newspaper as an auto ad rep, and eventually ends up on the agency side of the business. He finds success. And today, like we mentioned earlier, Frank is the VP of an ad agency. He's in charge of marketing and advertising for auto dealers, and he says that as of late, he noticed a change or shift in the conversations he's having with dealers.
As of late, as of the last few years, it seems that the amount of marketing and advertising I do with dealers, as opposed to the discussions, the big picture discussions about training and salespeople management and BDC management and what marketing and advertising actually turns into when it comes to the customer experience. That seems to be more of what I spend my time on lately.
Clearly, the landscape within the auto industry is changing, and I think many dealers are struggling with this change. We're shifting from an old school way of business where the dealer held all the cards to a new school of thought focused on transparency and customer experience. To navigate this change, Frank recommends,
I think the best way for anybody who wants to do that is to sit down ahead of time and formulate a plan and ask for permission.
This is especially important if you're working within a dealership culture that's closer to the old school than the new school, and this goes for anyone promoting change within the dealership. But what exactly does having a plan mean?
So what I mean by formulating a plan is there's a night and day difference between when you go into a manager or a general manager, and you walk into his office one day and say, hey, I think all the salespeople should have their own Facebook page, as opposed to if you ask the manager for an hour of his time and before that you're completely prepped and you have examples of other salespeople who have Facebook pages, what they're doing with their Facebook pages, and you come up with the plan of what you want to do, how you're going to execute it, and what results you intend to come up with.
This shows management that you're prepared, and they're probably going to pay closer attention if you have these key components outlined, and if you're able to articulate them in a clear fashion. Lobbing an idea or ask over the fence without an execution or results plan won't get you far.
You'll do a lot better getting somebody to look at something new or getting somebody to allow you to try something new than if you just go in and start with just, hey, I want to do this.
There will be obstacles because change isn't easy.
Nobody really likes change. Nobody does, because change has a huge element of the unknown attached to it. Because you don't really know 100% what's going to happen or what the outcome is going to be of anything that you do. You may have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be, but you don't know because your agenda may not match the agenda of everyone else that you have to interact with to get this element of change to actually go through.
I buy that.
So the biggest resistance that you're always going to get is just the resistance of the unknown.
It's really hard to give up good for great. It's risky to step away from something that's comfortable. This holds true in your personal and professional life. For example, I've been blessed to have some really good jobs throughout my career so far. So when a new position or prospective job comes up and I'm given the opportunity, it's hard to make the decision to even explore it because I've always been happy where I'm at. It can go either way. But I'll tell you, when I've taken the opportunity, after serious consideration of course, in most cases it's worked out. And I've gone from a place of comfort where everything's good to a place that challenges me, that's helped me grow, and in the end, it's moved the needle for me, from good to great. So let's look at another example. Patrick just ran into this within the dealership recently. An obstacle came up that I doubt the salesperson had even thought of.
Somebody brought up that they wanted to do an individual branded Facebook page just a couple of weeks ago. It got through to one of the general managers who was on board, and then the red flag came up from our IT officer who says, I can't have people streaming because it's going to slow down the web and blah, blah, blah. So it gets sidetracked in so many places. They really have to have their game plan together. So,
as Frank puts it,
everybody is always afraid of their job, and everybody is always afraid of quantifying their existence.
He gives us an example.
Right. So that's what I mean. Like you may sit down and you may sit down with a sales manager and a general manager. OK. And the salesperson says, look, I really want to grow my own personal brand. I want to start to do things on my own to have customers come in and look right directly for me. Obviously, they're going to come here because I'm here, but I want to have them come in and just come right directly to me. I want to try to generate my own business and generate my own traffic. The GM could look and say, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. The sales manager could go, no. And the no could come from a personal vendetta that he may have over keeping control over the salespeople, or actually his own insecurity of keeping control over the salespeople. It could be that, in the back of his mind, he's thinking to himself, Jesus Christ, this guy doesn't go back to the customers and say what I want him to say in the first place. Now he's going to be bringing his own customers in, and he's going to have more power than me. There's a lot of in dealerships everywhere. I don't care what we're talking about. I don't care if it's a big dealership. I don't care if it's 15 rooftops, single point, sells 20 cars a month, sells 200 cars a month. It doesn't matter. There is always a struggle for power in every single one.
He goes on to say,
and most of the time, the struggle for power doesn't come from the top down. It comes from the bottom up.
So how can managers who are stuck in the old way change and evolve to embrace the new way of business?
It's really hard, but I think it comes down to one thing, and that one thing is self-awareness.
Let's provide some framework and context around what Frank's talking about. Many managers came up in the business during the late 80s, early 90s. They were taught by leaders who ruled with an iron fist. and beatdown method. And because they were taught and mentored this way, that's what they learn. So now they're managing this way too. The problem with this is that things have changed. They've changed drastically, and it's not just the business that's changed. The people in it have changed. Younger generations work and learn differently, so if management styles don't evolve to meet these new employees where they're at, this happens.
You take that management style, combine it with the 9th place trophy thing, and you got a big issue. You got a monstrous issue,
So how do you fix the problem? Where do you start?
They have to look at what their strengths are as a manager, look at what their weaknesses are as a manager, and look at who they're trying to manage.
But why should managers have to change? Why can't these newbies to the business change?
Because you're not going to change the idea of the ideals of somebody who is 22 to 25. That's not going to happen. They're already set in stone. The clay's already hardened.
Furthermore, the industry has changed. We all know it. Customers buy cars differently. They shop differently. They interact different. So we need to manage differently.
No, so managers really have to look at who is it that they're managing and change their own tactics, change their own thought patterns, change their own ideals in a way to match what is going to be best for them. Because the bottom line is that we're all looking to give the customer the best experience possible and to give the customer the experience that they are looking for. Because if not, they won't buy from us. And we all want to sell cars and hold more gross.
True that.
And when you think about it, really, they're not really looking for anything that's all that special.
All great information and resources for managers currently trying to evolve within the business. But what about new managers, those that are just getting into this type of role?
Time out. One quick note. Do you need resources to help you manage millennials or a workforce of multiple generations? If so, go to belesstypical.com/resource or text the word resource to the number 44222 and opt in. We'll send you links to our 3 favorite resources. That should get you started. Just go to belesstypical.com/resource or text the word resource, RESOURCE, to the number 44222 and opt in. It's easy. Now back to the show.
Okay, so what about these new managers, specifically salespeople who are transitioning from the showroom floor to the role of BDC and/or social media manager?
I just want to pause on that notion real quick, because I think this is happening at a rapid pace within many of our dealerships. Many salespeople have built their personal brand on social media and management, and dealers are taking note. Dealers want what the salesperson has accomplished for the dealership. So many salespeople are being asked to move into a management role, usually with responsibilities in marketing, social media, or BDC. So for someone in this position, Frank recommends
the first thing I would tell them to do is spend a lot of time observing, but try to observe from a different point of view.
And this is important because?
So try to think of it from multiple points of view, because if you're selling cars, you're not just selling cars to one age, to one demographic. You're going to be spread across. You're going to be younger people, you're going to be people in their 30s, you're going to be middle-aged, and you're going to be people in their 50s and 60s.
It's true. Each demographic is going to react differently to each marketing message.
So take a look at what each one of those demographics likes. Look at what their patterns are. Look at when they're online. Look at what they do online. Look at what they respond to. There's more than enough.
Good stuff. What's next?
Number 2, I would say follow and really pay attention to the bigger brands and look at what they do. Look at like Chick-fil-A. Look at Starbucks. Look at Target. Look at these brands that have multi-million-dollar budgets for social media and multi-million-dollar minds working on them, and learn everything that you possibly can. Pick up every single tip, get every single little point of view that you can from these larger brands.
And the third thing you should do?
And then number 3, it would be resist the urge to spam. Resist the urge to sell. No, resist the urge to put up content that sucks.
Frank says you should resist putting up the pictures of the happy couple who just bought a car. This is okay for the salesperson to put up on their personal page, but on the dealer's page, he says resist the urge.
And really look at the content that your audience is consuming and tailor your message and tailor your creative to line up into that content. and into what they're looking for. Don't create social media posts that you like. Create what your followers and create what your audience likes.
This last one, creating what you like versus what your customers are looking for, is probably the most important, because all this does is add up to the up-and-coming epidemic of spam thumb, or carpal tunnel thumb, whatever you want to call it.
I think pretty soon all of us are going to come up with like a carpal tunnel for our thumbs, right? From us just swiping our thumbs up on our iPhones all the time because there's so much shit on social media that we don't want to see. Mm-hmm. So spam, I guess you would call it spam thumb, because you're swiping away all this spam all the time, but there's so much of it, you'll wind up giving yourself carpal tunnel in your thumb.
That's funny, but he's probably right.
Let's recap what Frank has taught us so far. Want to recommend a change within the dealership? Formulate a plan.
This shows leadership you've done your homework and they'll take your recommendations seriously. Include examples of what you want to do, how you're going to execute, and the results you intend to come up with.
Change isn't easy.
Make the decision to go from good to great.
Self-awareness is key.
Look at who you're managing and tailor your management to meet employees where they're at.
If you're struggling to manage millennials, do your homework.
Search the internet or text the word resource to the number 44222, and we'll send you some of our favorite articles and white papers with proven research on how best to manage millennials.
Redefine your dealership's social strategy.
Analyze messaging to ensure it reaches your target market and across demographics. Watch big brands, and above all else, resist the urge to put out crap posts. Don't spam. All great info, but this is just the warm-up. Listen in next week on episode number 26 as we dig into the how-tos of creating a social strategy within the dealership that's proven to get results. Frank joins us again to share what he's done for some of his dealers, and I scour social media to find example of what's working, what's not, and we discuss what Frank thinks is going to be the next social media platform to explode, in a good way.
Thanks for listening, and a special thank you to Frank Lopes for being a guest on the show. For show notes, go to belesstypical.com/025. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. To find all previous episodes of the show, find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or our website.
Our theme song is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. All episode editing and mixing is done by us, a couple of amateurs learning as we go.
2 items before we sign off. Number 1, please take a moment to share our show with your friends, family, and coworkers. Sharing is caring, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, if you or anyone you know are conducting car sales in a less typical way, please reach out to us. We want to hear your story, and there's a chance you could be featured on an upcoming show. Send me an email so we can connect. My email address is patrick@belesstypical.com.
Behind the scenes.
12 minutes, bitches.
This shows leadership you've done your homework, and you'll take your own recommendation seriously.